us by basically trying to get to the root of your problems. So we'll have some discussions. You'll talk to me as much or as little as you like. It's completely up to you. There is no pressure for you to tell me anything that you don't want to. And if at any point you would like to stop, then we stop. You are in complete control. Now, as this is your start by talking about how the stress makes you feel physically. Does it give you headaches, make you feel tense? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now, the type of symptoms that you're describing there lead me to think that along with the stress, you may be suffering from some anxiety as well. The racing pulse, the kind of sweaty palms, feeling dizzy, things like that. I think potentially you may be suffering from anxiety attacks related to the stress. Now, don't be alarmed by that, that's completely normal. It's just our way that our bodies deal with things like stress. Sometimes they go to the extreme level and we can experience things like panic attacks. So it's fantastic that we have recognised that in our first session, because then we can really start to work on that. Okay. So when you get in this kind of panicked state, what do? Do you try and cope? Do you just stay in that stressful situation? Okay. Okay, so you tend to stay a little bit frozen in that situation, finding it difficult to break free from that. Yeah. Unfortunately, when we get ourselves in a state like that, it can be very, very difficult for our mind to get back to normal. Our mind tends to rule our body, and however much we tell it to relax, when we're all tensed up and our heart's racing and we're feeling panicked, it's extremely difficult to get out of that. What I can tell you is that you are not alone. The feelings that you're feeling are experienced by many, many people. And even though it can seem like in that moment there is no hope, you feel very scared, very alone, there is a way out. Okay? Okay. You feel relieved. Yeah. Sometimes even just talking about something more, a problem more, can really help. When you bottle things up, that can tense you up as well, and often when you speak out loud about something, it makes it a whole lot better. We are ones these days to definitely bottle things up, and we get obsessed with researching things online and flicking through social media and making ourselves more anxious, when actually if we just take a step back out of that situation and reevaluate, we can just calm ourselves down, and we don't need to panic as much as we think. Okay. These stressful periods, have you ever experienced them before? Sure. So your stress, by the sounds of it, is really brought on by external things. It's not something that you're creating in your mind out of nowhere. this a couple of times. How did you get them to go away then? Yeah. So you either started to move on, and that brought your body back to feeling normal in a situation like a family loss, and where you've experienced this stress through a job, you've actually decided to change your position, correct? Have you ever experienced a moment where you're out in public and you've been completely overwhelmed by stress? How'd you cope with that? Okay. So, you keep it to yourself. And again, you're using that freezing mechanism. So by tensing up, it isn't helping. It's not helping you. It's not helping the people around you. Have you ever felt like this and you've been in the presence of someone you care about, or someone who cares about you? Sure. In that moment where you're frozen, do you blank everything around you? Does it feel as though you're the only one there? Everyone around you is kind of moving, but you're completely frozen. Yeah. And in that moment, what is your mind feeling? Okay. So in that moment, you're just thinking about yourself, obviously, and how you feel. If we step back from that, let's think about what the people around you might be feeling. They might be feeling very worried for you. They may be feeling like that themselves. They probably feel like they want you to let them in, to help you, because they care about you. And by you going into yourself, you're closing yourself off from them. Can you see that? From what we've been talking about, I can see that you're someone who does like to keep things to themselves. You're a typical self-warrior, and when you go through a certain life change, you tend to take that very personally, and it affects your mind and your body. Now, we've talked about how you feel physically during those stressful periods. Let's talk about how it makes you feel mentally. In your own time, just tell me some emotions that come to mind. stressful periods, that you take a minute of stress, you feel those negative emotions, and then the rest of your day you feel content, calm and happy. How different would that make your day? What therapy helps people realise is that A, they aren't alone, and B, there isn't a reason to feel anxious. The stress in your life is through circumstances that are either in your control or out of your control. In this instance, you feel overwhelmed from stress due to your career choice. Your choice. Nobody else's. So, you do have the opportunity to change. And if you want to stay in that same career path, we need to learn how to manage our stress. Yes? Good. Part of managing stress is visualizing how we would rather feel. So for you, every time you get in that moment of panic, I want you to breathe in those 3 words that you resonated with your good days. So I want you to breathe in happy, calm and content, and breathe out all those negative emotions. Anywhere you are, I just want you to close your eyes and do that for as many times as you need to. Now obviously, you experience these physical symptoms from the stress, and I can tell you those won't be permanent. When you begin to learn that your mind is controlling your body, by doing the breathing exercises, your body will gradually begin to relax. And it won't be an instant thing. It will take time and work and more therapy sessions. But it will happen, and you'll begin to get less of the stress days and more of the good days. So, how do you feel after this first session? Good. I know it can be overwhelming in itself coming to see me, but I promise together we're going to work through your problems. And you can come and see me however often you would like, and we can just chat and work through them together. Okay, good. It wasn't as bad as you thought, no, good. Well, that's all we have time for today, but you've done really, really well. What I would like to work on next time with you is some more coping techniques, and I'd also like to have a look into any other areas of your life that are really bothering you, okay? And we'll do that together at your own pace. Good. Well, I'd like you to leave here today and begin to work with the breathing technique that I've talked about. Every time you get into that tense feeling, just try and do the breathing, and I'd like you to take yourself out of that situation, okay? If you can remove yourself from that environment, even if it's just temporarily, I promise you that will begin to also make a difference. So before we end today's session, is there anything you'd like to ask? No. You can just make